Hello world, this is Jeffrey, JGB146 Blake from Hoopa Hideout, coming to you today with a new deck profile over what looks to be potentially the best deck and format in the new format once Twilight Masquerade becomes legal. Now this isn't a list that I found out on the internet. I've actually been testing several dozen games and I've been seeing stellar results against basically everything that I've played against. The hardest matchup has been Charizard with multiple de-evolution TMs, but even then, if you stack and stagger your evolutions right, that's not too big of an issue. There are things in this that make it run more smoothly, in my opinion, than any other lists that I've seen out there. It is using the Xatu line, but it's also using Pidgeot line. And before I just describe the whole deck, let's start going through it, and I'll explain the decisions along the way. So, of course, we start off with 4 Dreepies, because Dreepy is the main basic to get to our main attacker. Then we have 4 Drakloaks. And once again, Drakloak, he has the Recon Directive ability, which lets him draw, well, you look at 2 cards, put one of them into your hand, and one of them on the bottom of your deck. So you're going through your deck at a steady pace. You're putting stuff you don't need right now down at the bottom to use later. And it's a pretty powerful ability for consistency's purposes. But this isn't our main way to draw through the deck. This is like a bonus. We certainly want to play this stage 1 more than Rare Candy, mostly actually because of the de-evolution TM. If that wasn't an issue, we probably wouldn't even play 4 Drakloaks. But since it is, we do. Then we play a 3 count of Dragapult EX. Dragapult EX is here with his Jet Headbutt, single energy attack. For 1 energy, doing 70 is, nothing to be shy about. That's a pretty strong 1 energy attack. But just 2 energies, 1 fire and 1 psychic, gets us to his major attack, which is Phantom Dive for 200 damage, and you get to scatter 6 damage counters on your opponent's bench, however you like. This is not stopped by Jirachi, because Dragapult is not a basic. This is not stopped by Manaphy, because it's not damage, it's damage counters. It will be stopped by Pokemon with abilities that completely block all effects of attack. So you cannot place damage counters onto a Pokemon that has Mist Energy on it. You cannot place the damage counters onto a Charmeleon with the, I forget, Flare something ability that blocks effects of attacks. And if your opponent has the stage 1 Robuska, evolution from Relore in play that blocks all effects of attacks, you can't do anything there either. And you can't even run a Devo or anything like that. But Robuska only has 100 HP. You can gust him up and you can take care of him and just move on with your day. And all the other bits of turning things off here and there. A, you can play Temple to not worry about Mist when you need to. B, you can just kind of play around it and it works out pretty well. I'll also note that none of those blocking abilities or effects block abilities that place damage counters. So our Radiant for the deck is Radiant Alakazam, and then Radiant Alakazam can get around pretty much all that stuff to help smooth over damage numbers. But we're not there yet. Next, we play a 2-2 line of Natu and Xatu. And of course, we're playing this exclusively for the Clairvoyant Sense ability on the Xatu. Lets you attach a basic psychic energy to one of your Pokemon, not counting as attachment for turn, and then lets you draw 2 cards. Most games, we probably just want to get out 1 Xatu, but it's a very big want. It's almost a need. I was Originally, when I first started work on the list, I was playing a 1-1 line here, and anytime you prized either side, it hurt. So we play 2-2 because we want to reliably get out the 1-1 line, and sometimes maybe get out the 2-2, but usually you'd rather get out another Dreepy line and get that going rather than playing 2 copies of Xatu in the moment. Now, after that, we do play a 2-0-2 Pidgey line. Going up to the Pidgeot EX with the quick search ability that actually is part of why this build can pop off. So we can accelerate energy with Xatu, and we can jump with Arven playing the rare candy model to get Dragapult up, get one of them up and out and attacking as quick as turn 2. And it's not that hard to do. You'll see some gameplay videos soon that'll demonstrate some of that. Now then, we do have some support Pokemon as well. So let's go through them. We have our Radiant Alakazam to help move the damage counters around so that we can maximize what those 60 damage counters placements can do, as well as rounding numbers up to get KOs. If you hit for 200 on something that has 220, then you can move 20 damage counter, like 2 damage counters, 20 damage onto it and get the knockout. Or you can, if you're going to have to overkill something, you can move some damage off of it to spread those counters elsewhere and help get a knockout elsewhere on top of the KO of the active. We also play a Manaphy because our board is definitely vulnerable to Greninja and any other damage snipe. Then finally we play Cleffa to help us draw. This is the same reason that it's in the Tord Zard build is why we have it here. It helps you set up fast and reliably if you're going second. And we play, of course, Rotom V to help ourselves set up fast and reliably if we're going first. Now then, let's talk about some of the rest of what we play. We play some Pokemon Search, of course. We play 4 Buddy Buddy Poffin because we have a lot of low HP basics that we want to get out and start developing. This can also get out Cleffa or Manaphy if we're in matchups where that is needed and works out. We then play 3 copies of Ultra Ball. This is for getting out anything else, especially the stage 2s. Occasionally the stage 1s with Drakloak or Xatu as well. And then we play 2 copies of Nest Ball for a fast way to get out Rotom V or Radiant Alakazam, or if we just really need to get out another Pokemon along the way. That is our Pokemon Search. But of course, we have stage 2s, in some cases without even a stage 1 to go along. So we need some help evolving. We play 3 copies of Rare Candy. That's because ultimately we want to Rare Candy up 1 Pidgeot EX and probably 1 Dragapult EX. We want to evolve the other 2 Dragapult EXs manually if we can. And we might, if we're against a deck that plays Devo routinely, we're going to actually go ahead and evolve one of them all the way up to a Dragapult to have a backup even if they Devo us. We then play 2 copies of Counter Catcher. We tend to fall behind on prizes, and being able to gust around our opponent to take knockouts or not quite knockouts, to set up knockouts for multi-prize turns is huge. We play 1 copy of Earthen Vessel. This will help us get out. The only energies we play are Psychic and Fire, and it helps us get them out when we need them. A lot of times we'll either Pidgeot or even Arven for this vessel if we have the other pieces we need. We play a Super Rod to get that energy back into deck and to get back Pokemon, of course. And then our ace spec of choice is Scoop Up Cyclone. That is because Dragapult can take a hit, and then you scoop him up, you reattach energy with Xatu, you manually attach the fire, and you're just rolling again. You have a brand new 320 HP Pokemon to start attacking with again. Sometimes we scoop up other things. I've had games where I use Scoop Up Cyclone just to pick up Radiant Alakazam to do an extra 20 damage movement, because that extra 20 got me an extra 2 prize KO. After that, we play some tools. Of course, with the Rotom V, we're going to play a Forest Seal Stone to again help us lock in on the one-ofs here and there that we need to make our powerful turns happen when we want them to happen. We play 1 copy of Rescue Board. A lot of times we attach that to the Xatu because our opponents don't as often tend to target Xatu. So that's a free or treat pivot when Pidgeot is not in play. We play a 1-of Technical Machine Devolution, another powerful effect. And if we could, we'd play more copies of this. If we could, we'd play a copy of Technical Machine Evolution, but deck space is tight. So this can definitely be very powerful against the right decks. Then we will get into supporter lineup. So we play 3 copies of what I guess we'll call our main supporter, Arven. It's not a 4-of, it's a 3-of. But Arven helps us get that rare candy, Forest Seal Stone combo to then evolve up Pidgeot, evolve up Dragapult, get the Earthen Vessel if we need to, get an Ultra Ball to get a Pokemon, you know, all those things to make the combo happen for a turn 2 big attack to help us keep rolling and just jump into it so that our opponents that are playing aggressive decks don't really have a shot to outpace us. We play 2 copies of Iono. That's just for the standard, you know, a little bit of disruption, a little bit of letting us see fresh cards. We do end up putting a lot of stuff on the bottom of the deck, so Iono can sort of help with that as we sort through and look for the cards we want and try to get them to the top of the deck. We play 2 copies of Boss's Orders going along with those 2 counter catchers. This helps us to really do a lot of gusting around. Boss tends to be a more late game supporter. Like I said, we tend to fall behind on prizes in the early game, so we rely on counter catcher combined with one of these other supporters, and then Boss late game when we're back on good footing. We play 1 copy of Mela. This is our other energy acceleration. So what Mela does, you don't know, don't remember. You can only use her when you've had a Pokemon knocked out the previous turn. So if your opponent has knocked out a Pokemon, any of your Pokemon on the previous turn, you can attach a basic fire energy directly from your discard to one of your Pokemon. Doesn't count as attachment for turn. Then you can attach a psychic energy, either with Xatu or from hand, and you're powering up a Dragapult and ready to follow up whatever you were doing. But additionally to the energy attachment, you also get to draw until you have 6 cards in hand. So fills your hand back up. You can play down a bunch of cards to get the attackers ready. Then you play Mela, fill your hand back up, accelerate energy with Xatu, get even more cards, and you're just rolling to see plenty of cards so that you can keep going. We play 1 Temple of Sinnoh. Originally I played 2, but there's just not room. And despite the only playing 1, I have not had problems beating Lugia, as you'll see in some of the live play videos. After that, it's just about the energy. We play 3 copies of Fire Energy for the Mela effect. This is the card that we end up attaching from hand, and because it's part of our draw, we play 5 copies of Psychic Energy. There are times that you might find yourself using this to attack with Radiant Alakazam. His attack actually can do some damage. It's 20 damage for each card in your opponent's hand. So if you're playing against a deck that tends to build up big hands, that can actually come in pretty handy as a single prize attacker. But I will say, one of the things we'd like to change about this whole setup is having another single prize attacker. So let me go through the cards that don't quite make the list, other than the places where, you know, we certainly like to have an extra rare candy. We'd certainly like to have an extra Ultra Ball or Nest Ball, an extra Super Rod, an extra Earthen Vessel. Those are just extra cards we'd like to find room for. If we, you know, if we got to play 70 cards, we'd certainly play extras of all of those. But other cards that are just like that close to finding its way into the list for me. PAL Pad, because we have a fairly low supporter count, so being able to reuse Boss or Mela or Iono, very helpful. A couple more tools that could be interesting. The Defiance Band and the Vitality Band. Just because an extra 10 or 30 damage, like I said, we tend to fall behind on prizes. Hitting for 230 against the 280 HP Pokemon, just, you know, a little bit stronger, because then the 6 damage counters that you place on your next attack, if you got something else up, they don't even all have to go to that Pokemon to get a knockout. Now, the Vitality Band, on the other hand, gives us, you know, 1 damage counter away instead of 2 from knocking out a Pokemon V, you know, a 220 HP Pokemon V, or it gives us 2 damage counters away from knocking out a 230 HP Pokemon EX basic, which Radiant Alakazam only moves 2 damage counters. So being 20 away is perfect for you. Being 30 away is a little bit less perfect. But, like I said, I've seen it working pretty well without any of these damage modifiers. And if that's going to take away from the consistency, we don't want to mess with that. Another way we could modify the damage is to play Mawile and use Tempting Trap to bump our damage up by 90. We may be sacrificing a prize to do so, but this also gives us the extra win condition of just, you know, forcing our opponent to run through their resources trying to get out of the active. We can get Mawile back with the Super Rod to reuse that effect. So decks that are vulnerable to like a Snorlax stall style game plan could fall victim to this as a win condition. Finally, it's sort of a double. It's sort of two cards that we'd have to play for it, but we just replace one of the energies to play Monkey Dory with his awesome ability to move up to 3 damage counters from one of your Pokemon to one of your opponent's Pokemon. That's going to round out all kinds of numbers for you. So that, again, could work very powerfully. But if we do play him, in order to get that dark energy on him, we would have to play a luminous energy that can count for multiple types. Because if we're playing a straight dark energy, that's only going to work for Monkey Dory, and we want something that's going to work for multiple purposes in the deck if we're changing things out. One other card that I don't have here because I didn't think to grab it, but could also help, is from base set Scarlet and Violet, the Halucha that places 2 damage counters when you bench it. Unfortunately, our bench is rather tight, so unless it's an effect that gets repeated over and over, like with Monkey Dory, it may be hard to justify having a bench sitter. And in fact, a lot of times there are definitely games where I need bench space back and end up using our A-Spec to pick up Rotom and or Cleffa. That could make an argument for also playing Toro, but again, finding the space has been difficult. Now, with all that said, I'm basically ready to wrap up the video, but I want to remind you, the next few days, maybe over the course of the next week, I will be releasing a lot of videos playing this deck against other Twilight Masquerade decks. I'm not doing the like, oh, let's show random matchups here and there. I'm going to be showing this against Lugia, this against Charizard, this against Chin-Pao, this against Lost Tina. You know, the matchups that are meaningful, not against random decks that are kind of B and C tier, that aren't really going to be the challenges you face in tournaments. We're going to see how this rolls against actual decks that are predicted or have shown themselves to do well. Because I believe in it, and I've seen it work against those decks. Now, with that said, thank you for watching. Thank you for sticking around the extra 30 seconds there. This has been Jeffrey, JGB 14.6 Blake for Hoopa Hideout, and I will see you next time.